there's been a massive change that I've noticed with Pokemon cards and collectibles, and a lot of it comes down to how they're perceived as investments. Honestly, if I could be totally straight honest with you, if back in 2023, if I was at a barbecue and someone or one of my friends, and if we got into the topic of Pokemon cards as investments, and if someone asked me, Phil, do you really think these are legit investments? Honestly, I probably would have backed down at that conversation. I wouldn't have been full-hearted in my response because I kind of was like, oh, I don't want to sound like a banana. I've got some lingering doubt here. But I did know as well, there was another side of me that when I'm buying these Pokemon cards that I have a huge connection with them. But maybe I was kind of like, oh, it is my own personal connection. Though these days, and with how much Pokemon has grown, I do have a pretty different opinion. And honestly, if someone asked me right now, I would kind of argue my point. I would actually speak about why they're seen as genuine investments. You see, back in the 90s and the early 2000s, when Pokemon, Dragon Ball, and Yu-Gi-Oh! Exploded, they weren't just popular hobbies or interests that a lot of people had. They were part of the monoculture. You gotta remember that millions of us as kids watched the same episodes before and after school, we all traded the same cards, and we all lived essentially in the one space. Though, honestly, when you look at today and how we consume media, having that monoculture is just so much more rare. Algorithms have pretty much split us into niches, and then sharing something global, whether it's Pokemon or Dragon Ball, that's kind of something that has become a thing of the past. And it's interesting because we're kind of living in this fragmented world of what we consume. For example, if you looked at the media I consume, I absolutely love collecting content, I love fitness content and gaming content. But one of my best friends, he lives and breathes WWE. My brother loves sports, and another friend is obsessed with travel content. We're all consuming completely different media, and we're living in our own little worlds, and we're kind of separated in our own spaces. But the thing is, that's not just with me and my friends. That's literally most people right now. We all have our specific hobbies and things that we love, and we're all kind of separated. And it's crazy because times have changed a lot, but something that hasn't is our nostalgia to the previous world. Because Pokemon and Pokemon cards still exist as a bridge back to that shared experience that we all had, and it does bring up that monoculture we all experienced. And that's why, honestly, I kind of find it a bit cringe when people and creators try act as if their love for Pokemon is in some exclusive club. Like, real talk, man, there is nothing unique about loving Pokemon because we all made such a special bond with it. We all felt like it was something super unique to us, but in all honesty, Pokemon has consistently been amongst the highest selling video games on literally every Nintendo console. So I don't know, for some reason I've noticed, like, for years of making content, that people have this thing that it's like, nah, Pokemon was something that I was connected with. But like, when you actually look at it, it's really not the case. In fact, most people had a deep, loving connection with Pokemon, because whether that was you played it on the GBA, whether you were playing it on the Game Boy Color, whether you started getting into Pokemon cards as a kid, or whatever your connection, whether you watched the anime, it was a massive part of that monoculture. Same thing with Dragon Ball. Like, it would be very rare to meet a male that is 30 years old and ask him, hey, did you watch Dragon Ball? And for them to say no. That would be like a shock because it was part of the monoculture. But I suppose what I'm trying to get at is, like, especially after making so many videos on YouTube and learning so much about the community and the people, I've learned a lot about Pokemon cards and the market, and seeing how people connect with Pokemon cards is really unique. And there's also a very ugly side of how people fight over them. And I've come to the conclusion that it's much bigger than collectibles, and a lot of these have a sort of history and personal connection that goes beyond the cards. And why Pokemon cards are climbing so much is because Pokemon cards are printed for a set amount of time, be that 2 years or 3. Though once that set is out of print, it essentially becomes forever locked in history, with no more of that card coming to the market unless someone opens sealed product that they have. So it literally becomes a piece of locked history in time. And I just think as we've grown and as we've changed, I think people's preferences or Millennials and Gen Z, what we like purchasing and what we like trading or investing in has changed. Though a lot of us are in our 30s and like, yeah, we love our collectibles. Maybe some of us are connected to art, but a lot of us are connected to, is that Pokemon? Is that One Piece? Is that Dragon Ball, Yu-Gi-Oh, whatever it is, the thing that we all shared in that monoculture. And you don't really need to explain anything. If you do have a top Pikachu chase card or a top Charizard chase card, you don't need to educate anyone on that. People know those characters. The thing is, right, like, it's not that Pokemon cards or buying them is gonna make you a crazy millionaire. That's not what I'm saying, but it is interesting because I do know a lot of people, through their efforts of years of investing in Pokemon and purchasing sealed product and maybe selling their product, that they have enough now that they could potentially pay off their mortgage, or they could sell a lot of their collection and afford a down payment for a home. The big reason why I like investing in Pokemon and collectibles is because, like I said, like Pokemon was a massive part, like a lot of you watching, of my life. It was huge. I felt so connected with it and I really saw that power. But now as I'm getting older and having that lived experience of playing the games, of loving the trading cards and just seeing how everything's grown, literally how we all connected with Pokemon has evolved as well in our adulthood. So I do think it has become a very interesting period right now. Now also, when it comes to buying and selling Pokemon cards, I do want to talk about today's sponsor, Double Hollow. Now Double Hollow is a Pokemon marketplace with some of the lowest platform fees being only 4.9%. But what's really unique is that Double Hollow actually functions much more than just a Pokemon marketplace. For example, knowing which cards to purchase in the hobby can be difficult, though if you head over to the premium tool Top Picks, you can get a really detailed view of the top 10 cards to keep an eye on right now, and as well the top 10 cards to avoid. Now another awesome premium tool is the price forecast feature. So if you do click on a specific card, you'll see this section. Here it provides price trends and forecasts, and it makes it super useful. Honestly, when it comes to purchasing cards, the more info you have, the better decisions you can make, and that's where Double Hollow really shines. Now if you do want to try Double Hollow's premium features for yourself, you can get a 30% discount off your first month by using the promo code on screen. All the details to Double Hollow are in the video's description. A massive thank you to them for supporting the channel. Now let's get back to the video. The reason why collectibles are so good and the reason why I love them is because we all have a shared understanding. There isn't no crazy breakthrough collectibles are going to do. There's no insane utility that they have. The buyer and the seller, we all understand the same playing field. They are collectibles, and that gives them a lot of power in their own right because no one is buying a PSA 10 card thinking it's going to do some crazy innovation for the world. We are all buying the end product, which is the collectible. Also, hey, if you have been enjoying the video, my name's Phil and I make content around Pokemon cards and collectibles. It's been awesome surpassing 100,000 subscribers, and honestly, seeing so many of you support the channel really has been heartwarming. Honestly, I'd love to have you subscribe so you can stay up to date with Pokemon. Though I do want to say, with saying all this about Pokemon cards, and one thing I've noticed, especially in the last few years, we haven't had a real big market pullback. Though it has gotten me thinking, because I do see a lot of people speaking about this, and it's called the greater full theory, and whether or not this is a big thing in collectibles. So this term for Pokemon cards has been gaining a bit of momentum. This is essentially that a theory that everyone is buying something and that they're expecting that someone will pay a higher price later on, and essentially who is going to be the last fool. But the only aspect that doesn't really get taken into consideration about this is the genuine collector, because I know if I want something in my collection, whether it's for my master set, or if it's something that I want a PSA 10 copy of and it's nostalgic to me, I personally don't care about the end price later on. I have some items in my collection that I've had for years and I don't plan on selling them. In fact, I want to keep them and they're part of my story as a person. They're actually a big memory for me and they're very important to me, and I'm happy to pass those on later on in my life. So this is where I feel that last full theory, or when people that don't have that connection, they can sound a bit ignorant. Over the years, throughout my years of gaming and years of connecting with Pokemon and Dragon Ball as well, I have made very strong connections. A lot of my life, even like this is outside of actually with Pokemon, I really see Pokemon and the lessons I've learned and the philosophy I've learned from that franchise, I apply it in my day-to-day life, man. We're constantly evolving as people. I love it. I love that you, the rare things, catching rare things, seeing things. It's taught me so much about life. And same with Dragon Ball as well. Like Dragon Ball is such a big connection point for me as well. And I do love making Dragon Ball content. I do know that a lot of you guys love my Dragon Ball content. Like you guys are so loyal. All the people that want the Dragon Ball videos. I am getting around to it. Believe me, I am. It's just that there's so much happening right now in the Pokemon space that I keep talking about it. There is lessons I have learned from Akira Toriyama and lessons I have learned from watching Dragon Ball that have improved my life so much. And one big one, and I'd like to share it with all of you here, is how if you watch Dragon Ball and if you watch how Goku or any of them, or Gohan or anyone, when they have to transcend and they have to transform, that power up never, ever comes from being in a lovely place. It never comes from life going. Every time Goku has had to transcend to Super Saiyan 1 or Gohan to Super Saiyan 2, it came from the pain that they had to deal with and they had to level up. And I find the connection points with Dragon Ball and how much it's taught me about life, it's had a massive influence on this channel, because if you know me, and a lot of you know my story and how I've had a pretty rough time. Life hasn't gone that easy for me. I've been in hard times when my daughter was born. I was trying to build my video production business. It was a really hard time for me, but I kept going. And I've realized that real growth comes from those difficult moments. And we expect growth to be like, oh, life's going good, man, life's going sweet. But really, the moment that we actually level up in life is through those difficult moments. And I just found that, like, to me, that's why Dragon Ball is such a special anime to me and franchise, because the life lessons it's taught me. But that's what I want to say with these collectibles as well. The way I view them, that connection point to my life, that such a sincerity of how much they've changed my life in a positive way, whether it's Pokemon, Yu-Gi-Oh, Dragon Ball, whatever it is, that is also shared with you across the screen. And when you collect your Pokemon cards, or where you collect your Dragon Ball cards, or whatever you're collecting, you have that same connection as well. So that is where this last full theory doesn't really come into play, because a lot of us, there's still a lot of genuine collectors, and that's the power of collectibles. They don't have an ulterior motive. Some people do expect, hey, if I buy this PSA 10 card, it's going to triple or 4 times in price. Some people have that, but a lot of us, including myself, I never ever buy a card that I genuinely want in my collection and expect, hey, it's going to grow. If you really want that investment side, sealed product is probably the best way. But I love collecting my singles. I love collecting high-graded copies of singles. So my favorite PSA 10 cards, it's the Milotic Special Illustration Rare. Milotic's my favorite Pokemon. Love the artwork. Huge connection point to me. I've got Moonbron. Moonbron is an amazing card. It's got so much history. I've always wanted that in my collection. Never have I regretted buying Moonbron. In fact, if Moonbron even tanked, it wouldn't bother me at all, because that is such a piece of Pokemon's history for me. The area I'm really trying to explain with Pokemon cards and the content is how much of personal connection it makes with people. So don't ever underestimate how powerful that is and why people are investing in collectibles. You got to remember as well, man, and I'm going to be making a video about this in the future, but the power of nostalgia. And why do they say that millennials are the most nostalgic generation of all time? Why do they say that? And I'll tell you why, man. And I'll tell you why a lot of us are connected with Pokemon and why people are investing in this as well. It's because this is the only time I ever remember that the future looks worse than what the past did. And I don't mean to be bleak, but I'm being serious, man. Like, I'm actually being real with you. Think about it. We've got AI. Like, I'm so worried, like, as a dad, like, I think of my daughter, I'm like, what's happening with the world, man? Like we're even looking at it like graduation speeches. People are going on, like, doing graduation ceremonies, and they're mentioning AI, and people are booing them. We have these leaders are trying to, like, convince us that AI is some incredible thing for the future, but you can see we as the people are speaking, saying, we don't want this, dude. We want nothing to do with it. We are rejecting it. And it's such an interesting time, because the future doesn't seem that all that's great. And I remember as a kid, the future was exciting, man. When I was growing up, oh, I can't wait for the future. I actually remember as a kid being so excited for what's to come, what things are going to happen. Oh, life's going to be great. I'm going to own this. I'm going to have that. I'm going to buy a home. But as we got older, we've realized, hey, home ownership, that's not really that easy for millennials anymore. Gen Z or the next generation coming up, home ownership's looking very difficult. Same thing now with careers. Like, the whole thing of a career, that's changed. Like, did I ever think I was going to be a YouTuber? Did I think that's going to be my primary career? No, but I had to pivot to that, and I'm able to connect with you. That's why I don't see I see the power of collectibles beyond what a lot of people see, because I see it connects us to a safe spot, and we're all happy to have this kind of shared collective where it's like, nah, Pokemon cards, nah, Dragon Ball, whatever it is, One Piece, we connect with that because it brings us back to a time where we felt safe and we had the monoculture. Also, by the way, if you do love Pokemon video games, you can see me go into full nostalgia breakdowns and deep dives on my channel called Philip's Trick Room. On this channel, I go deep into the history and lore aspect of Pokemon and Nintendo. Honestly, I'd really love your support there. So I just want to say that, like, I wouldn't really disregard or like, when you think of Pokemon as investments, see them more as connection pieces and historical pieces what our generation connects to before a time that because the world is going in a strange place. In my opinion, man, I'm not that excited for what the future holds, to be real, man. I'm not. Like as a kid, like I said, I was so excited, but the whole AI thing, it's just changed so much. And there is a reason why we're like, even scrolling, doom scrolling, like we're dealing with things that we've never experienced. I actually saw a quote, man, and it said, gaming right now feels productive. Watching a TV show feels productive. And I told my wife, I was like, to Chanel, I'm like, that's so true. Like, if I actually sit down and play Final Fantasy VII on my PS5, I actually feel like that's productive. What I hate doing, and I cannot stand, is doom scrolling or getting caught on some reels and sitting there for like an hour watching that stuff and just not being lazy. And then sometimes at night I want to play like some PS5, or I want to play my Nintendo Switch, and I'll sit down, and before I even grab it, I'm sitting on my phone scrolling, and I'm like, what am I doing, man? Why am I doing that? I get so annoyed with myself. And then I try to get into my game and get immersed there, because it's better to be consuming a game and consuming that art than to be just consuming a lot of the trash that we consume. So I think that's the point I'm trying to like get to here, is that the connection point we've made with collectibles is very special. So in terms of them as investments and long-term outlook, there is strength there, man. There is big connection point with a lot of people across the world, and we can all see that. And that's why I'm not surprised why Pokemon cards are growing so much in popularity. To me, I can see that huge sentimental value they hold for so many people across the world. Though it is interesting because Pokemon cards are entering this new era, though it will be interesting to see 10 years from today, are they going to grow more in popularity, or will things calm down? Though it is important to remember that even when you're buying Pokemon cards or whatever you're doing, collecting on a budget is very important, and you don't want to just be buying cards endlessly. And the best way to collect Pokemon cards on a budget is revealed in this video on screen here. In this video on screen, I speak deep about Pokemon cards on a budget. If you love this video, you're going to really appreciate that video on screen. Appreciate you watching. Don't forget to subscribe, and I'll see you on the next video.